Welcome to the Purpose Driven Mom Show, episode 389, and Happy New Year. This is that time of year where we're excited about our goals. Things feel really good. And now it's going to be about 2-3 weeks into the year. And everything starts to feel overwhelming, right? The to-do list is piling back up. That relaxed feeling you might have had of a break is gone. And you get stuck into what we call the Monday mentality. And I just talked to my husband this morning about this. So it's January 2nd when I'm recording this. My two littles have gone back to work. My husband and my oldest are still on break. And so they're home today. And the schedule's a little different for them. I'm trying to get back in. Now, my husband yesterday got up and he went to the gym and he was like all for it. And we just had the conversation this morning because he said to me, oh, I was so excited yesterday. I went to go to the gym, like I was ready to go. And this morning feels a lot harder. It feels a lot harder to get up and go. It feels a lot harder to get moving and grooving. And I'm like, that's that Monday mentality. And maybe you did it too. And I want to help you pull back from the Monday mentality or the January mentality or the New Year mentality and actually accomplish your goals this year. I am on a mission this year to help transform the way moms look at their goals so that they can accomplish them. I was watching stories from our case studies. These were members of the Purpose Driven Mom Club who submitted their stories last year. And I was talking to some of the members at our culminating holiday party about what they accomplished this year. And I just thought, we could go bigger. We can impact more moms. There are so many that could learn this method that we teach inside my programs and have huge goals crossed off their list. And one of the ways to do it, though, is to get rid of that Monday mentality, which is where we put everything on our plate. We get excited for Monday, and then by Tuesday, we're over it, right? And what I want to talk about in today's episode are some ways that you can ditch kind of that day-to-day overwhelm. Because I think it's one thing to make the big goals. It's one thing to have the, to-do list and the vision boards and get excited. But it's another to implement day-to-day. That's where we struggle, right, in the day-to-day. And so I'm going to give you 3 very quick things that I do every single day that allow me to not have perfect days, but have more intentional days. You can see if you're watching over on YouTube. So if you're not, come and check out our new YouTube channel over on YouTube. My word of the quarter for work is intentional. Now, my word for my personal life is ease. And my word for my quarter for work is intentional. And you can see I've got a couple, let me see if I can move this a little. You can see a couple statements I've got written out for myself on how I show up intentionally. And I'm going to use that as an example today of what you can do to ditch the day-to-day overwhelm. Okay. So the number one, I guess they're in no particular order. Here's the first tip I want to give you. And that first tip is using my themed time blocking method. Themed time blocks really can be a game changer. I've worked with so many women who are like, I do the time blocking doesn't make sense to me. I just feel like I can't fit it all in, or I'm only working on certain things. The way that I teach time blocking is a little bit different. I teach a thematic approach. And what I really like about themed time blocking is it allows you to focus on one type of task or one area of your life and move on. A lot of times what we'll say is like, until I do this thing perfectly, until I get my entire to-do list done, until I do it, 100%, I can't move on. What theme time blocking does is it allows you to look micro. So what I want you to do when you're planning is I want you instead to ask yourself, what are my themes for each block? Now, time blocking, there's so many episodes we have on time blocking, but if you're new here, it's essentially the concept of saying, hey, I'm going to take a 3-hour-ish give or take chunk of my day, and I'm going to work on similar tasks because our brain wants to work that way. Now, the theming and what people I think get held up on is they're like, well, if your morning theme is self-care, which is mine, I still have to get my kids ready, right? So it's like, I can't just do self-care. Well, I'm not asking you to just do it in one area. What I'm saying is you tell your time where to go. So if I know that my theme for my morning is self-care, any self-care goal I have, I know where it's going to go. I'm still getting my kids ready for school, right? We're still doing all those things, but I'm going to work on my small self-care tasks. I have a theme. It's not every day, right? My themes are not always the same. In my time blocking method, you can have it be different, where I have home blocks, right? So I have some home goals that I'm working on this year, a little bit of like decluttering, cooking, those types of things. So those go from 3 to 6, 3 days a week. So I know that if I have a cooking goal, which is one of the things that I'm working on this year, I'm going to do it from 3 to 6. This is allowing my brain to compartmentalize a little bit. Instead of feeling scattered, instead of starting my day with a list of 45 goals I want to accomplish, instead I'm saying, when am I going to work on them? And I'm predetermining my themes. All 3 tips I'm going to give you today are about predetermination, pre-planning, and intentionality. Okay, that's what we teach here, pre-planning and a little bit of grace. So I want you to look at your calendar and I want you to theme out your blocks. Ask yourself, if I have a goal around health, do I have a health block? If I have a goal around my spirituality or my finances or my marriage or my friendships, do I have blocks? One of the things that you can see, again, if you're on the YouTube, again, come check out our YouTube. We'll link it up in the show notes, but as I have a couple charts behind me, and this middle one that I have here is my themed work blocks. Now, one of the things that I was getting really good at, and I had kind of fallen off the wagon in December, was sticking to them. And so that's actually my habitual goal for January when it comes to work, is just sticking to my time blocks. So right now it is a Tuesday morning. So Tuesdays from 9 to 12 is where I work on my podcast. All right. I've changed that up. I've mixed a couple days around. I also sometimes will do a loop schedule. We're not going to talk about that today, but traditionally, most Tuesdays, 9 to 12, I'm going to work on my podcast. So now I know when it's time to work on podcast stuff, I'm not going to feel scrambled. I'm going to say, cool, I have a podcast task that needs to get done. I will plan it for Tuesday. And then I will ask myself, can it, like, say it's Thursday when this task comes up. Can it wait till next Tuesday? And a lot of times it can. And if it can't wait till next Tuesday, then I will find time to do it. But a lot of times it's actually just saying to myself, hey, I know that I'm going to work on the podcast Tuesday. This can wait till then. And I'm going to put it on my list and I'm going to get it done on Tuesday. So now from 9 to 12, I'm in podcast mode. I'm thinking about podcasts. I'm thinking about content. I'm recording, like I'm in that zone. And that will allow me to stay more focused. Now, one of the things I'm doing in January, and one of the things I'm going to encourage you to do too, is let it be fluid. So you can't really see too well on the back screen, but there's a couple that are bolded and there's a couple things that are handwritten on there. Why? Because as I started to get planning, I mentioned it's January 2nd when I'm recording this. As I started planning, I realized I had forgotten some of my batches that I needed to add in. We're planning our summit. So it's summit season. I need to make sure I have summit batches in there. My husband and I have decided, we had a goal last year. We didn't hit it. So we're working on a print on demand store that we're coming up with as like a side hustle. I need to put that into my workday. So I'm kind of going through and I'm adding them in to see when they work. And then I'm going to decide, do these themes work for me? Again, theming out your time blocks will let you feel less overwhelmed because you know where stuff's going to go. So when stuff gets thrown on your plate, you're not going to feel scrambled thinking I must do it now. Instead, what you're going to say is, I know when it's going to happen. Now, the other suggestion I'm going to give is, all right, let's do, both of these suggestions are planning ones. Let's do general planning and then we'll do some triage planning. Okay. I highly recommend doing a nightly pre-plan. Now, again, YouTube, you can see this is my planner. I love a plum paper. That's the planner that I use in my personal life. And then also I use Trello to map out my big picture goals. So I track everything on Trello. I then put it inside my planner for day-to-day planning. I highly recommend you add into your schedule doing a nightly closeout and a plan for tomorrow. This will allow you to feel less stressed out, much more intentional, and just a ton more focused. What my nightly closeout looks like is this. I will go into my Trello boards and I will go through my checklist and I'll kind of check off which of those goals I've already completed, which of those goals I've worked on. And Trello is really cool because it allows you to create multiple checklists. So I might have morning routine there and I have all the steps of my morning routine. I do this at night. Now, I used to do this in the morning when I was on the treadmill, but I decided I want to do this at night because I want to couple it with my planning. So I start with the Trello board and I go in and I check on my goals. I update how I'm doing. This allows me to do a check-in with myself. Hey, you said you were going, I'm training for some races this year. This is like my big year for running. I'm going to be 40 in April and I really want to start running again. I used to be a runner and I plan to be a runner again. And again, just for the record, I actually do run. Maybe I don't run far or fast, so I am a runner. Just to say that. I wanted to say that to you. I had a coaching call with some months ago and I remember she wanted to write a book and she was like, I really want to be a writer. And I was like, well, have you started writing it? And she's like, yeah, it's like halfway done. I'm like, well, then you are a writer, right? Like we have to step into that identity a little bit. So anyway, just a little self-coaching on me this morning of, I am a runner actually. But I would like to run races again, not to compete against anyone. Completion race. I am a rogger, if you will, run jogger. So anywho, the point of all of that is that I want to check in for my runs. So if I say to myself, I'm going to run 3 days this week because I give myself some buffer. If it's Wednesday and I haven't done any of my runs, I can check in and be like, oh, Cara, okay, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you only have one more buffer day. Like you really got to get you running. Or, I can check in, like, for example, this week, I'm doing all my runs earlier in the week to be done with them for the week based on what my other workouts are. So I can say, hey, I'm done early this week. Very cool. Like I did that. It allows me to audit in real time. So I start with the Trello. I then move into my planner. So I go through the planning process that we teach in the Purpose Driven Mom Club, the one that we do on Sundays. I will do a shortened version. So I look at any of my appointments for tomorrow. So today is Tuesday. Like I said, I'm recording this for tomorrow. So I had a 12:30 appointment. It actually just got canceled. So in my nightly planning tonight, I can cross that off. And what that did, that freed time up for me that I didn't realize I was going to have. So that's really cool. I want to plan around that. Because if I didn't plan around that, what would happen is I'd be like, oh, right, that meeting's canceled. Let me go wander around. Let me go look at the laundry. Let me go do things non-intentionally. Now I can say, hey, I know that meeting was canceled. What can I do with this time? And hey, I might say, I'm going to go read my book, right? Like I might do that. It doesn't mean it has to be filled with something that the world says is productive. It can be filled with whatever I want it to be filled with. Maybe I just give myself that time for myself, or I choose to get ahead on a project based on how I'm doing. So I know that I have that. My daughter has cheer tomorrow, which is great. I love when my daughter has cheer because I can drop her off. And then I always go over to Starbucks while she's at cheer and I work. So I get in a couple extra hours of personal planning or work planning or reading my book. So I want to plan out what I'm going to do with that time. All right. So I just start with what are my appointments for tomorrow? What stuff has popped up for me? I then will look at the goals that I completed today. I like to highlight what got completed, and then I will look at what didn't get completed and ask myself the question, does this need to happen this week? And if it does, I will then ask myself, what theme is it? And where am I going to put it, right? So now I know where it goes. And then I go into my Trello board and I just make sure I've got any goals I want kind of planned out for myself. Now I'm going to bed very intentionally. I'm waking up in the morning knowing exactly what I have to do. One of the ways that I found myself getting off track, which is why I picked intentional for my word. Again, I know the method. I teach the method. I made the method. I still got off track. And I found myself getting like sucked into books. And then I was watching TV. I only watch like 3 TV shows, right? And one of them is Big Brother, which is on like 3 times a week. And it was in September, and I was finding myself getting super distracted because normally it's done in the summer. And everybody else watches Big Brother, and then Survivor started. There was too many shows I wanted to watch. So I was finding myself just easily being like, let me go watch TV instead of working because I wasn't intentional. What this does now is it lets me be intentional. And now I know how I want to spend my time. Okay. So step 1, make sure your blocks are themed. Tip 2, I guess they're not steps. Tip 1, make sure your blocks are themed. Tip 2, do a nightly plan so you're intentional in the morning. And part of your nightly plan is going to be a quadrant priority brain dump. This is based on the Eisenhower matrix where you're basically planning by urgency. So I use a thought catcher system. That's what we like to call it because as moms, our brains are going a million miles an hour. There's 100 things we have to think of. I like to use thought catchers so that I can just get the stuff from my brain onto paper. Now, the thought catcher is great because the thought catcher is not saying I'm doing this right now. It's just saying I don't want to forget it, so I'm going to put it here. And so one of the things I like to do weekly is go through and create a quadrant-based brain dump. I use this every night. So I will then pull it out. I do it on Sundays. And then I will pull it out and I will put it in my planner for the week to make sure the little tasks get done. I'm going to give you some examples of some things that are on my brain dump. These are things that are not really connected to my big goals. These are things we like to call the home CEO tasks or just the little stuff that pops up. And I'll give you, like I said, I'll give you some examples. Step 1 is you write it all down. Don't categorize it. Don't qualify it. Get it out of your brain and dump it on the paper or Trello or wherever you're going to do. All the things you have to get done, all the swirly thoughts, all the stuff that comes to you in the shower, all the places you have to go and the errands you need to run, you're going to put them all down on your paper. And then what you're going to do is prioritize them for the week based on these 4 quadrants. Quadrant 1, these are the things that are urgent, which mean they have to be completed by the end of the week and they're important. So like you can't miss them. We call these do it now. Okay. You got to get these done this week. Quadrant 2, these are the things that are important, but they're not urgent. So maybe you can work on them next week or in 2 weeks or in 3 weeks. And I'll give you some examples of different tasks that I put in like those different areas. All right. I'm actually going to pull my Trello board up so I can read some of them to you while we go. Quadrant 3, these are things that are, we'll say they're urgent, but they're not important that you do them. And we call this the delegate. Right? This is the things that you can delegate, that somebody else can do, that it doesn't have to be on your list. All right. And then quadrant 4, these are the drop-its. These are the things that are not urgent. They're not important at the moment. So you can leave them for now. You don't have to remember them at this exact moment. All right. So Here are some things that I'll give you some examples that are on my January thought catcher. And what I like to do is I'll make one for the whole month. And then each week I go in and triage them like based on the week. And then every night I look at them and I assign myself a couple tiny tasks to do every single day. And I batch them together. So phone calls all get batched together, things like that. So some of my Q1s, my do it now, right? Things I need to do. My daughter has her annual neuro appointment. My daughter has epilepsy, so she has to go to the neurologist once a month. It's in January. I have to remember to schedule it. I haven't scheduled it, right? My son, I don't know where he's putting all of his long sleeve clothes. They're just all missing. But I know he has like 4 shirts right now. I know we have bags of clothes in the closet. I just have to go through them. So that is a do it now. And that is a this week because I'm like, I don't know where all of his shirts went. And I was like, I need these clothes right now. These are urgent. I need to go through them. Okay. Could I delegate and have him do it? Maybe, but he's 6. I want to do the clothes. So that's one of those. Things like scheduling appointments, right? Like I go get my eyebrows microbladed once a year. I need to schedule that now. I want to schedule coffee with a friend, things like that. So what are some do it laters? Like, hey, this needs to get done. But if it doesn't happen, like right now, it's cool. I want to start planning summer camp. I know it's January, but we need to plan because another do it later for me is picking our family vacations. Over the break, we had a family meeting and we talked about all the things we wanted to do. We've got a couple of vacations we'd like to have. I need to get them on the calendar so we can backwards plan, right? It's not urgent. Like if it happens in February, it's going to be fine, but it's important. So I want to put those down. Some things that I have for delegating. My daughter wants to open a bank account of her own. She does not have one. I don't know why we've never opened bank accounts for our kids, but we didn't. And that one needs to get done. My husband can do that. I don't have to be the one to do that. So I'm going to put that in a Q3 where it's kind of urgent because like she really wants to get it done and I don't want to forget. But he can do it. Things like putting the Christmas decorations in the attic there. It's on my list. Taking the tree down is on my list. And yesterday I took all the ornaments down, but I can delegate. I can ask my husband to do that. I don't have to do all of it. And then things that are on my drop it list or answering my Facebook messages. It is what it is. If I get to them, I get to them. I don't care that much about my Facebook messages. Sometimes it bothers me and I feel like I should get on there, but I'm not going to stress about it in January. If it happens, it happens. And so these are some examples of my list. Now, what I do with this then again, is I make one in January. Each week, I then go in and I kind of move things around based on Q1, 2, 3, and 4. And then every day I give myself a couple tasks and I kind of batch them together. And so I mentioned that I have a home block. So sometimes during my home block, I'll work on these things, but I also give myself a thought catcher block twice a week to work on these things. And how this helps me ditch the day-to-day overwhelm is that I know where the little tasks are going. I need to schedule my daughter's neurologist appointment, right? It has to happen. If I don't put it in my calendar, I'm not going to do it. But if I keep thinking about it, it's going to like own all this space in my mind. It's going to stress me out and it's going to make me feel like I must do it right now. And then I'll get derailed from my actual things that I have to get done. So you see how I have a strategy for doing the day-to-day tasks, right? We want time to work on our goals. That's where the theme time blocking comes in. But we also need time to work on the thought catcher stuff. And that's where the quadrant comes in. So now that you're getting into the new year, now that you're getting all these things done, I just want to encourage you to take these 3 tips and run with them. Pick the ones that you think can help you. Think about your day-to-day and how you want it to feel for yourself. And know that you can conquer your goals if you're intentional about it. Head over to purposedrivenmom.com/podcast 389. You can check out show notes from this episode. Please come check out our new YouTube channel. We'd love to see you there. Have a wonderful day and we'll chat soon.